For my film interpretation subscribers, I apologize for this digression away from my recent topic of Westworld. Yesterday, I had a discussion concerning the philosophical topic of objective morality with the online personality Destiny during a Discord AMA he was holding, and I feel there are a few points I need to clarify after re-listening. Destiny frequently debates on the esoteric topic of objective morality, and has staked out a position that rejects objective morality from an extremely rigid interpretation of Hume's declaration that no moral statements can be drawn from descriptive statements about the world. When convincing someone that objective morality exists, the difficult part is usually convincing them that selfishly motivated beings must, as a logical necessity, behave in some way altruistically. But Destiny doesn't need convincing on this account.
An individual who is inherently, at the very minimal, an egoist is forced into altruism because of the inherent nature of cooperation, which allows us to metaphysically divest the world.
Yeah, and as an egoist, I agree with the first part that you are forced into a form of altruism if you have to. If you're like logically sound, you have to, right?
The reason Destiny rejects the idea of objective morality is that he feels these descriptive statements about the world do not add up to a, quote, moral fact, unquote, because descriptive statements can never lead to moral facts. I had a previous discussion with him which boiled down to this point.
I haven't actually read Hume's like write up on this, but I feel like I understand it more and more without ever even having read it because I've had people reference it. It feels like when I get into these discussions, what it sounds like is like, here's a descriptive statement, here's another one, there's another one, here's one, and then there's one. And it's like, okay, and like, yeah, so there's your like normative thing. And it's like, where? So like, it sounds like you're saying that like, well, let's say that I put a man in a hallway. Now on one side, there are a bunch of thorns and spikes and hot lava and shit. And then the other side, there are 42 virgins waiting in eternal bliss. Well, that guy is always going to prefer to walk to the right than the left. So that path is good. And it's like, well, wait, hold on. Like,
this definition is incredibly narrow. In fact, it would seem that this definition excludes a somewhat literal description of the worldview of a believer in traditional religion. So in my question for Destiny, I posit what I'll call unlabeled Christianity as a world description, where a powerful entity, not necessarily God, sends you to an afterlife of eternal torment in a place which isn't necessarily hell if you perform certain actions, and then ask if this constitutes a case of objective morality. Or would no ought statements be capable of being drawn from this description of a possible world? No ought statements be capable of being drawn from this description of a possible world?
yeah, I think it would be absolutely indicative of descriptive or like actual moral fact existing and like being able to make good odd statements, like objectively true odd statements, yeah.
At first, he answers yes, this is a case of objective morality, although he walks back after discussing the lack of morally charged language. Specifically, discussing a deity which is neutral with regard to your choice of piety and non-torment, or defiance and torment.
Sure, and if we can take, I'm hesitantly answering yes as long as we take away all of the loaded assumptions regarding these places. Yeah, if there's just a place of eternal suffering and a place of eternal happiness, and we don't call them heaven or hell or imply there's like an omniscient godlike figure making commandments about these places, then yeah, there is still no immorality implied there. Sure.
Regardless, it seems there is a bind for his position. Either forcing altruism with egoistic pain threats is not a version of objective morality, in which case unlabeled Christianity would not be objectively moral. Either that, or the forcing of altruistic action through threat of egoistic pain does constitute objective morality, and his statements about the real world logically forcing altruistic action out of egoists implies that the real world has objective morality, in the same way that unlabeled Christianity has objective morality. However, I make a couple of mistakes due to the live nature of the conversation. Here, for instance, I mention that it appears the state of the universe exists such that altruism is enforced, but I use the word design instead of the phrase, quote, the state of the universe exists such that, unquote. That you will be egoistically rewarded if you are altruistic in some way. That is the logical design of the universe. So that
Well, no. I totally disagree with that. When you say logical design of the universe, that's just the way the universe is.
Which then sets Destiny off arguing against deism. This confuses me. While he does eventually point out that he is only talking about my use of the word, quote, design, unquote, which triggers his memories of creationist arguments, I have to take a moment to digest what he's saying and try to understand what's going on, so I didn't quite hear what he said. I was busy coming to the conclusion that the issues of creation were completely irrelevant to our topic of objective morality, a thought which literally took some thought, and therefore took my attention off of what Destiny was saying for a moment. That the universe that we exist in, like, even if this is just by happenstance, it seems that by happenstance, I don't understand why the fact that it's by happenstance is relevant to the fact that morality seems to exist.
Okay, sure.
as,
So
like,
like
a
here,
natural
so
law.
sure. So here's like my question, rather than being on the defense. Right? What is a moral fact? How do you see like morality? What do you interpret morality with?
Nearly immediately after that, Destiny put me off guard by asking me to define morality. This isn't something I was prepared for, as I thought altruism defines moral actions. I didn't really consider the definition of morality per se, distinct from moral actions. I stammer a bit and come up with the definition of morality as the reason behind altruistic actions, by which I mean the mental and logical justifications our mind uses to compel altruistic actions. In other words, the reasoning we use to justify altruistic actions to ourselves and others. The reasons why you behave in some way altruistically is morality. He took the meaning of, quote, reason, unquote, more literally than I intended, and while I was mentally running a check of my definition of morality to see if I could come up with any meaningful counterexamples, he said this.
I can give you a series of chemical reactions that occur in the brain.
So we started using the term reason in completely different senses for a moment. This led me to agree with his stating that our biology drives our altruistic action, and this is objective morality.
Okay, I guess, but like every single thing that you've said there can be subsumed by like biology. So why do we even need morality to, like, Occam's razor? Like,
well, exactly, yes. So therefore, objective morality exists. It's like a logical truth of our physical existence in this physical universe. I thought he was referring to the biological drives at the root of selfishness and egoism in general. The selfish drives to survive and mate, which arguably are at the core of all egoistic human action, which, as he said earlier, must bow to altruism as a matter of logical necessity. Unfortunately, he was referring to our natural biological instincts to be kind to other humans, which of course clearly does not constitute any kind of reasoning or morality, let alone objective morality. This made my position seem somewhat ridiculous, and therefore I'm making this video to clarify. Well, I hope that cleared things up somewhat. I have a lot of respect for Destiny, and I think his patient extended debates with extremists from both ends of the political spectrum are important public services. I encourage all of you to check him out. This has been Shiva's Right Foot, and I'll talk to you next time.